What if everything we believed about Meghan Markle's motherhood was a lie? In a televised shockwave that sent the world reeling, Prince Harry has just confessed that Meghan faked both of her pregnancies, never carrying Archie or Lilibet at all. Even more disturbing, he revealed she paid professionals to forge ultrasound scans, hospital records, and birth documentation. And now, Meghan has been arrested, facing charges of identity fraud and medical deception. But that's just the beginning. In this video, we uncover the stunning timeline, the private investigators, the damning DNA test results, and the hidden network Meghan allegedly used to pull it all off. The illusion has crumbled, and the truth is more twisted than anyone imagined. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. One trail led to a digital artist in Los Angeles who'd worked on set designs and visual elements for media personalities. Contacted by private investigators, this individual admitted to being commissioned anonymously in 2024 medical visualizations and overlays that resembled fetal development scans. Though the artist never met Meghan directly, the payment came from a shell company registered to an address later linked to one of Meghan's charitable fronts. The artist believed it was for a documentary. He never imagined it would be used to construct the public perception of an actual pregnancy. Then came perhaps the most chilling revelation of all. The medical license number used on one of Meghan's alleged OB letters didn't match any practicing physician in the United Kingdom. In fact, it belonged to a retired practitioner who had passed away in 2013. A forensic handwriting expert compared the signature on the document to samples of the real doctor's writing. It was an obvious forgery. Every time a new layer was peeled back, it revealed a deeper, more deliberate orchestration. This wasn't a casual lie. It was an elaborate performance built on layers of credibility, backed by false identities, digital manipulation, and misleading personal narratives. Meghan had, it appeared, not only duped the public but created an airtight wall of plausibility even Prince Harry could not initially penetrate. Yet nothing can withstand scrutiny forever. As these findings came to light, Harry faced the devastating realization that his entire experience of becoming a father, the ultrasounds he celebrated, the scans he held close to his heart, were illusions crafted to convince him of something that was never real. He'd been shown doctored images, handed fake papers, and assured by Meghan herself that everything was real. According to sources close to him, Harry wept for days. It wasn't just that she lied to the world, one friend said. She lied to him in the most intimate way a person can be deceived. She fabricated the moment of creation. From this storm of betrayal, Harry made his decision. The evidence had to be revealed. No more shielding. No more silence. What remains now is the fallout, not just legal, but emotional, personal, and historical. Because this was not just a matter of falsifying documents, it was a calculated act that questions the lineage, identity, and moral standing of individuals once thought to be the face of modern royalty. In the next chapter, we explore the identities and roles of the individuals Meghan allegedly hired to help fabricate her pregnancies, names hidden behind shell companies, consultants paid in cash, and professionals who now face the scrutiny of investigators, attorneys, and the public eye. Every elaborate illusion requires a supporting cast, those who play roles behind the curtain, far from the public gaze. Meghan Markle's alleged deception surrounding her pregnancies, as exposed by Prince Harry, wasn't the work of a single person. It was a production, staged with precision, aided by discreet professionals, and veiled beneath layers of public sympathy and celebrity influence. The deeper investigators went into the digital records, financial documents, and verbal testimonies, the more names emerged, names previously unknown to the world, tied together only by an intricate web of loyalty, payment, and secrecy. Among the first to surface in the investigation was a man referred to only in documentation as J. Devlin. Not a medical professional, but a media consultant with experience in brand strategy for actors and high-profile influencers. According to bank statements obtained by Prince Harry's legal team, Devlin was paid in 4 large installments during 2018 and 2019, each from a trust fund not directly traceable to Meghan but tied to a registered nonprofit she oversaw through proxies. His role, insiders suggest, was to craft the public pregnancy narrative. Ensuring timelines aligned, photos were released at optimal intervals, and no one inside the media apparatus asked the wrong questions. Devlin's communications revealed email chains with pseudonymous designers who were tasked with modifying ultrasound images, editing pregnancy photos, in sourcing pregnancy prosthetics used by stage actresses. Though no email directly tied Devlin to Meghan by name, attachments in the correspondence referenced Subject MM and included confidential image files matching those seen in Meghan's published pregnancy photos. Another name on the list, Anya Resnick, a former private healthcare consultant who once worked in Eastern Europe offering concierge medical services to ultra-wealthy families. Investigators traced 2 bank transfers from a U.S. business entity affiliated with Meghan to Resnick's personal account, transfers that coincided with the dates Meghan claimed to have been under medical care for her first pregnancy. Resnick, when approached, initially denied involvement. But when pressed with documentation, she acknowledged that she was contracted anonymously to fabricate verification documents for non-hospital-based birthing experiences. While she didn't confirm that Meghan was the client, the timing, payment route, and type of service all aligned too perfectly to ignore. It wasn't just digital artists and document fixers. There were handlers, paid intermediaries who operated in silence, never appearing in official staffing lists or public photographs. One of them, a woman known as Eleanor S., reportedly coordinated the transport of maternity prosthetics used for various public events. Leaked emails described detailed fitting sessions, discussions about silicone durability, and which visual effects would hold up best under various lighting conditions. Most damning of all, Eleanor referred to one package as Baby Arch Bump V3, suggesting not only planning but iterative customization. Private investigators discovered the trail didn't stop with a few freelancers. Meghan had allegedly created an entire side operation involving small shell companies in Delaware and Canada, firms registered under obscure names that employed nobody, sold nothing, and produced no physical goods. Yet they existed, and they moved money. One company, listed as Rosebridge Holdings, was discovered to have sent over $170,000 in discrete payments to various specialists, some in the medical field, others in media design. Among the recipients was a boutique prosthetic specialist who supplied custom bodysuits for television dramas. Operating under a false name, he claimed to have created a high-grade, breathable pregnancy mold used in celebrity TV appearances. Though he had no record of whom it was for, the client requested specific measurements that matched Meghan's pre-pregnancy physique. He admitted, under sworn affidavit, that the suit was indistinguishable from a real belly at close range, especially under dresses, coats, or certain fabrics. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation came when investigators followed the trail to a single high-end medical firm that quietly billed for non-standard consultation services under a celebrity confidentiality clause. This firm was staffed by a retired OB/GYN, Dr. Lionel H., known in Hollywood circles for helping public figures navigate alternative birthing narratives. Dr. Lionel had a reputation for discretion. His name had never appeared in the tabloids. Yet, when Harry's legal team matched his digital signature with a consultation note used in Meghan's private birth dossier, the handwriting was unmistakable. Contacted through legal intermediaries, Dr. Lionel denied any wrongdoing but did not refute that Meghan was a client. "I offer services to those who want privacy and control over their narrative," was his only recorded statement. Whether that narrative is real or not is not my business to question. In total, over a dozen professionals, ranging from legal consultants to cosmetic specialists, were identified as having contributed in some form to the deception. None of them were household names. Some operated from obscure offices in other countries. Others worked from behind encrypted emails and proxy servers. What they had in common was silence and payment. What emerged was a picture of a carefully engineered illusion, one that spanned borders and disciplines. Meghan had allegedly hired digital engineers to simulate scans, legal experts to draft backdated documentation, body specialists to produce wearable bellies, media liaisons to control the press narrative, and even stylists trained to disguise prosthetics during live appearances. The operation wasn't rushed. It was methodical, sustained over 2 pregnancies, and carried out with a level of precision that stunned even the most hardened investigators. And yet, even with all the evidence, most of those involved cannot be prosecuted, not yet. Many operated in legal gray zones, some overseas beyond jurisdictional reach. Others claim ignorance, stating they didn't know their work would be used for fraudulent purposes. A few may eventually turn state's witness in the growing case against Meghan, especially now that the charges include multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and deception. But none of these individuals could have executed such a deception without the influence, authority, and platform that Meghan wielded. They were tools, yes, but she was the architect, the mastermind, the director of a performance so convincing that even her husband, the man closest to her, was fooled. Until he wasn't. It's a chilling reminder that in today's digital age, reality can be manufactured. Births can be faked. Documents can be forged. Lives can be curated down to the most intimate detail. As this secret army of operatives begins to crumble under scrutiny, the question becomes, what did they know? And when did they know it? And more pressingly, what will they reveal in the face of mounting pressure, legal subpoenas, and public outrage? In the next section, we turn the lens inward, into the mind and heart of Prince Harry himself. We examine the psychological toll this deception took on him, his years of confusion and silence, and the moment he finally realized that the life he was living had been built on a lie. There is a particular kind of devastation that comes not from betrayal by a stranger, nor even a friend, but from the one you built your life around. For Prince Harry, the man born under the relentless glare of royalty and raised within a cocoon of tragedy, loss, and public spectacle, his adult years had finally promised refuge, love, purpose, and a family of his own. Meghan Markle, to him, represented salvation. She was not just a wife, not merely a duchess, but a chance at redemption from a legacy of media persecution and emotional repression. That she may have constructed his entire world on a foundation of deception was a revelation so severe it nearly shattered him. The signs, of course, had been there. They always are, in retrospect. Harry had begun to notice small inconsistencies, but he buried them, consciously, deliberately, as many do when they are desperate to protect the image of happiness they've fought to build. At first, it was little things, missed doctor appointments Meghan insisted had happened, yet yielded no verifiable records. Photos of ultrasounds that looked off, somehow. A sudden overreaction whenever he asked to accompany her to the OB-GYN, always met with teary accusations of distrust. It wasn't just resistance, it was strategic emotional deflection. According to sources close to the couple during those years, Meghan frequently painted herself as the misunderstood outsider. She often spoke of being isolated, attacked by the press, and unfairly judged by palace officials. Harry, wounded by the memory of how his mother had suffered, was uniquely vulnerable to such framing. Meghan knew this. She used Diana's legacy not just as a shield but as leverage, invoking the pain of the past to prevent him from questioning the present. This manipulation took a toll. One former friend described Harry during the later months of Meghan's first pregnancy as withdrawn, anxious, and oddly hollow. He smiled for the cameras, but in private, he began drinking more, sleeping less, and confiding less and less even in his brother, William, who had been the closest person to him since their mother's death. It's believed that William, having grown suspicious early on, tried to broach the subject with Harry on multiple occasions, only to be rebuffed with accusations of disloyalty and elitism. But the human psyche can only suppress doubt for so long before it begins to crack. Harry's internal crisis reached a turning point after the birth of Lilibet. Something about the second time, the repetition of secrecy, the near-total media blackout, and the rigid control Meghan exerted over every aspect of the narrative, deepened his suspicion. He began asking subtle questions again, pressing for details he had once let slide. He requested documentation, nothing invasive, just confirmation of birth certificates, hospital contacts, insurance records. Meghan refused. She argued he was falling into the trap of palace thinking, that he was regressing into a version of himself she had helped liberate. The gaslighting was subtle but persistent. Meghan framed every inquiry as a betrayal. She weaponized love against logic. But Harry, now further removed from royal pressures and surrounded by neutral parties in California, began to listen more to his instincts and less to emotional appeals. A critical moment came during a charity event planning session, when Harry mentioned wanting to include a hospital that had supported them during Lilibet's birth. A staff member checked the records and returned with a blank. No confirmation, no involvement, no acknowledgement that the hospital had ever treated Meghan. That gap jolted him. From that day, Harry began documenting everything. He began reaching out, quietly, carefully, to a team of legal advisors and independent forensic investigators. Over the course of several months, the picture became clearer. Documents were fake, scans altered, the hospital names either unverifiable or completely fabricated. When he confronted Meghan in their Montecito home with early findings, she reportedly dismissed it as paranoia. When he pressed harder, she broke down crying, accusing him of being just like them, the royals who had once tried to destroy her. And yet, for the first time, her tears did not sway him. Harry began sleeping in a separate room. The emotional distance widened, and so did his clarity. He began to revisit moments from years earlier, how the bump would change shape, how Meghan would clutch it even when no one was watching. He remembered the video from the panel where the bump folded, which he had once dismissed as a cruel internet hoax. Now, with the context of truth flooding in, it all made sickening sense. Insiders say Harry fell into a deep depression for several weeks. He struggled with guilt. How could he not have seen it? How could he have defended her so fiercely to his family, to the press, to the entire world? He wasn't just grieving the deception. He was grieving the version of himself who had believed in a life that never existed. At one point, friends say, Harry broke down in front of a childhood companion and asked, "If none of it was real, then who am I now?" But Harry is his mother's son. And even in the depths of personal devastation, something inside him refused to stay broken. A quiet steel, forged in childhood trauma and public loss, began to reemerge. He made a decision, not as a husband, not even as a royal, but as a man who had been deeply wronged. He would speak, he would expose, and he would protect his children wherever they had truly come from. Preparing the televised announcement was not easy. Legal advisors warned against it. Friends feared backlash. Meghan's allies threatened him with consequences if he dared go public. But Harry knew silence would be the final betrayal to himself, to the truth, and to the millions who had believed in their fairy tale. He rehearsed the words, not from a script, but from memory, not in anger, but in sorrow. Because this wasn't about vengeance, it was about setting fire to a lie that had devoured his identity for far too long. When the moment came and the red light on the camera turned on, Harry didn't flinch. He looked into the lens not as a prince, not as a victim, but as a man reclaiming his narrative. What followed was history. In the next section, we will explore the moment of Meghan's arrest, the legal basis, the charges she now faces, and the swift collapse of the public image she spent years building. Because deception, no matter how artful, always leaves footprints. And the law has finally caught up. The day Meghan Markle was arrested did not come with flashing lights or a dramatic knock at the door. It was quiet, controlled, deliberately timed to avoid media spectacle, at least at first. But in the age of instant information, nothing stays contained for long. By the time the sun had set over Montecito, the news was everywhere. Push notifications, headlines, trending hashtags. Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, had been taken into custody by federal authorities on charges related to identity fraud, falsification of medical documents, and long-term deception connected to both of her alleged pregnancies. The arrest had been orchestrated with clinical precision. Agents from a specialized division of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, working alongside a federal fraud task force, arrived at the Sussex estate early in the morning. Reports suggest they had been tracking and building the case for over a month, after Prince Harry submitted a formal affidavit supported by hard digital evidence, including forged medical records, falsified ultrasound data, and a sworn statement from at least 2 whistleblowers who had previously worked with Meghan during the orchestrated pregnancy schemes. According to official court records filed just hours after her arrest, Meghan faced multiple felony counts. Use of forged government-issued documents, intentional deception for the purpose of public gain, conspiracy to defraud a royal institution, and fraudulent representation in legal medical contexts. Additional charges included obstruction of investigation, misuse of nonprofit funds for deceptive means, and misleading government authorities by use of fabricated health certifications. At the Montecito estate, eyewitnesses described a sudden shift in the atmosphere. What was usually a tightly guarded property, hidden behind tall hedges and private security checkpoints, saw a subtle influx of unmarked vehicles. One neighbor later told local reporters that they knew something major had happened because Meghan's usual security team was nowhere in sight. Another recalled seeing Meghan being escorted quietly through the side gate, head down, face blank, unaccompanied by Harry. Notably, Prince Harry was not at home during the arrest. Sources close to him say he had intentionally distanced himself from the property the night before, choosing instead to stay in a secured location in Los Angeles. The move was deliberate. His legal team had advised him to remain uninvolved in the execution of the warrant to avoid emotional escalation or conflict. It was said that he didn't want to witness the arrest, not out of avoidance, but because, in his words, that part of my life is finished. It's no longer mine to protect. Once taken into custody, Meghan was transported to a federal holding facility under protective conditions due to her high-profile status. Cameras weren't allowed. Mugshots weren't immediately released. But the world didn't need images to understand the gravity of what had happened. The narrative had shifted. The Duchess who once dazzled the world with designer gowns and empowering speeches was now facing the very real prospect of criminal prosecution. Initial legal proceedings moved quickly. Within 24 hours of her arrest, Meghan's attorneys filed an emergency motion requesting bail, citing her status as a public figure and her intention to cooperate with authorities. But prosecutors argued against release, presenting evidence of her intricate network of shell companies, encrypted communications with known accomplices, and past attempts to erase digital footprints that could have otherwise served as evidence. The prosecution claimed she posed both a flight risk and a danger to ongoing investigations. The judge agreed. Meghan was denied immediate bail and ordered to remain in custody until a formal hearing could assess the full weight of the charges against her. The courtroom atmosphere was described as tense and surreal. Meghan appeared composed but visibly pale. Gone was the confident smile that had so often disarmed the press. She wore no makeup, no designer brands, just a plain gray jumpsuit issued by the holding facility. Her eyes scanned the courtroom once, reportedly in search of Harry, but found only rows of attorneys, press, and security. A legal spokesperson for the prosecution laid out the opening arguments. In their words, this is not a simple case of false identity or public misrepresentation. It is a systemic deception orchestrated over multiple years, crossing international borders, violating trust at the highest levels of public and institutional life, and exploiting motherhood, a sacred bond, for personal and financial gain. The charges, it became clear, were more than symbolic. They reflected a belief by the state that Meghan had crossed a line not only legally but morally. She hadn't just deceived her husband or the monarchy, she had betrayed the social contract with the public that allowed her to occupy such a powerful platform. She sold the world an image of motherhood, family, and vulnerability, and in return, she gained sympathy, book deals, streaming contracts, and speaking engagements, all now tainted. Meanwhile, the public reaction was split in a way no royal scandal had ever managed before. On one side were those shocked into disbelief. Meghan's die-hard supporters clung to the idea that this was a coordinated takedown, a smear campaign designed by Buckingham Palace, the British press, and perhaps even Harry himself. Hashtags like #FreeMeghan and #StandWithMarkle trended briefly on social platforms, driven largely by international fans who refused to accept the evidence presented thus far. But on the other side was a growing chorus of outrage. Women who had truly struggled with pregnancy accused Meghan of trivializing their pain. Victims of medical fraud pointed to her actions as reckless and dangerous. Fathers, some estranged from their children, spoke out about the trauma of discovering parental deception. It wasn't just a royal crisis, it was a cultural betrayal. Legal analysts began appearing on nightly television, dissecting every line of the court filings. Was Meghan truly the mastermind, or had she been pushed by image pressures and the relentless demands of fame? Would she plead guilty to reduce sentencing, or fight tooth and nail to maintain the last vestiges of her carefully crafted identity? Speculation also surrounded the question of whether Prince Harry might be subpoenaed to testify in court. While he had willingly provided evidence and a sworn statement, some believed the prosecution might call him as a witness, placing him face-to-face with the woman who had shattered his reality. For now, Harry remained silent. The only statement his team released was brief. The Duke is committed to ensuring the truth is known and justice is served. Behind the scenes, Meghan's defense team scrambled. They argued she had suffered extreme psychological trauma, stemming from sustained abuse by the media, institutional rejection by the royal family, and social isolation. They hinted that she had been under immense emotional pressure to perform motherhood as a form of cultural acceptance. One lawyer even floated the argument that her actions were the result of a severe dissociative disorder, and that she believed, on some level, that the pregnancies were real. The judge was unmoved. Trauma, he said, does not give one the right to rewrite reality and deceive the public with forged lives. A full trial date was set for 8 months ahead. In the meantime, Meghan would remain under controlled custody, allowed limited visits and monitored communication. It was the fall of an empire, self-built, celebrity-fueled, media-defended, and now crumbling in the harsh light of judicial accountability. In the next section, we shift focus to the burning question on everyone's lips. Where are the children? As the court investigates the origins of Archie and Lilibet, legal custody is frozen, DNA testing is underway, and the truth about their parentage threatens to shake the foundation of the royal lineage itself. Meghan Markle's arrest dominated headlines. One question echoed louder than any other. Where are the children? Archie and Lilibet, the two young faces of the modern royal era, born into global adoration and shielded from excessive public exposure, had suddenly become central figures in a courtroom drama that threatened not just reputations, but bloodlines, legacies, and legal rights. Were they safe? Were they real biological children of Prince Harry? And if Meghan never carried them, then who did? Authorities moved swiftly. Within 72 hours of Meghan's arrest, a federal family law judge ordered an immediate freeze on all custodial authority over both children. Citing concerns of potential endangerment, misrepresentation, and unresolved identity issues, the court invoked emergency protective measures. Prince Harry, despite being their legal father, was not granted immediate custody. Everything was suspended pending DNA verification and biological lineage review. The children, according to official court statements, were placed in temporary protective care under the supervision of a federally approved family services intermediary. This was not a typical foster care situation. It was high security, privately managed, and designed to shield the children from media intrusion, psychological harm, and undue influence. Only a select few were made aware of the location or the caregivers involved. The children were safe, but completely out of reach from both Harry and Meghan for the time being. The court's reasoning was complex but clear. With Meghan facing accusations of faking pregnancies and forging medical documentation, the very question of maternity and possibly paternity was now under formal investigation. Until the biological origins of the children could be established with absolute certainty, their custodial future remained undecided. This was no longer a family crisis. It was a legal labyrinth, with implications stretching from family law to royal succession law. The DNA tests were ordered quickly. Court-appointed specialists collected samples from both children under secure conditions, with another sample obtained from Prince Harry. The results were to be sealed and reviewed only by the presiding judge, along with court-designated forensic analysts. Multiple sources reported that Harry had requested the testing himself, solemn, quiet, and heartbreakingly resolved. As one court observer noted, he didn't look angry. He looked like a man trying to breathe underwater. The process took just under 3 weeks, but the silence that hung during that period felt endless. News outlets, legal pundits, and royal historians speculated endlessly. Had Meghan used a surrogate? Were the children adopted in secret? Was Harry even aware? And if not, then what level of deception had he endured over the years? The press labeled it the parentage silence. The palace, for once, said nothing. Not a single word. No comments from King Charles. No statement from William. Just a void of royal sound. Then came the unsealing of the preliminary findings. In a closed-door session attended only by key legal representatives, a bombshell was confirmed. Prince Harry was the biological father of only one of the children. The other, according to court-reviewed DNA evidence, had no genetic link to him at all. The test also revealed that neither child was biologically related to Meghan Markle. The implications hit like an earthquake. First came the revelation that both pregnancies had not only been faked through physical appearance, but also potentially covered up using surrogacy without disclosure, a violation of multiple international laws if done without proper registration. While surrogacy itself is not illegal, Meghan's alleged presentation of herself as the birth mother, complete with falsified medical documents, transformed the situation into one of deliberate fraud. Then there was the issue of paternity. For the child that Harry was not biologically linked to, a second round of DNA testing was ordered to identify the paternal match. Legal insiders claimed that the match pointed to an unknown American male, an individual with no known ties to the royal family, no public relationship with Meghan, and no existing claims to parenthood. His name was sealed under court protection, but the ripple effect was immediate. Prince Harry reportedly left the courthouse that day without speaking to anyone. One observer recalled him walking into a waiting car with his face completely drained of color, whispering only 2 words to his attorney: "It's real." The lie he had feared, fought against, tried to avoid confronting, was no longer just a suspicion. It was evidence. Custody hearings were temporarily suspended as the court restructured the nature of the case. What was once a matter of family custody had now become a federal guardianship review. A full investigative panel was formed to determine whether Meghan and Harry had knowingly participated in identity deception when presenting the children to the public, the press, and legal institutions. For the child Harry was not biologically linked to, the court began exploring pathways to potential adoption finalization, provided that the child's placement and emotional stability could be maintained. For the other, Harry was advised that he could petition for full custody pending the outcome of Meghan's criminal trial. But even that wasn't straightforward. The children's legal status as descendants of the royal family came into question. Were they entitled to their titles? Did they remain in the line of succession? Legal scholars and constitutional experts clashed over the interpretation of royal bloodlines in light of surrogacy, deception, and non-biological parentage. Lord Hampstead, a prominent UK royal historian, was quoted saying, "This is unprecedented. We've had scandals. We've had divorces, affairs, even abdications, but never a case where the legitimacy of royal children was questioned in court based on allegations of falsified birth origin." Meanwhile, in Montecito, Meghan's legal team scrambled to respond. Publicly, they issued a statement expressing concern for the well-being of the children, denouncing the DNA testing as state intrusion into a private family matter. Privately, however, leaked communications showed rising panic. Meghan's attorneys floated the idea of claiming surrogacy but argued that their client had always believed it was within her right to protect the privacy of the gestational process. But that argument collided head-on with the reality of the forged documents. Privacy is one thing. Forgery and medical fraud are another. Public reaction turned brutal. Social media lit up with cries of manipulation, betrayal, and child exploitation. Critics accused Meghan of using children as political and emotional currency tools to cement sympathy, win brand deals, and reinforce her carefully constructed image as a modern royal mother. More than one media outlet ran headlines like "Stolen Parenthood" and "The Manufactured Heirs." But others took a different tone. Mental health advocates urged compassion, warning that this level of deception could only arise from deep psychological instability. They pleaded for caution, especially in discussing the children, whose futures now rested not in the hands of royals, but in the courts. And through it all, Harry remained mostly silent. But those closest to him said he spent his days in legal meetings and his nights staring out windows, lost in thought. When asked privately what he would do next, he was said to have replied, "I still love them. No matter how they came to me, they're still my children." In the next chapter, we turn to Buckingham Palace. What was their role in all of this? Did they know? Did they suspect? And why did they stay silent while a global deception unfolded in plain sight? The answers may shake the foundations of the crown itself. While Prince Harry's bombshell revelations and Meghan's arrest consumed global headlines, the silence from Buckingham Palace roared louder than anything said. No statements, no denials, no clarifications, just a wall of icy restraint. For days, the royal family said nothing. And in a kingdom where silence is often seen as strategy, that silence now appeared more like complicity. The world began to ask a chilling question. Did the palace know? And if they did, why did they let it happen? To answer that, one must understand how the monarchy operates, how secrecy is not a byproduct but a design. The crown is not merely a symbol of tradition, it is a fortress of containment. Every image is curated, every word calibrated, every appearance rehearsed. The institution doesn't move in real time. It reacts only when silence threatens survival. And when Meghan joined the royal family, the entire system entered crisis mode. Behind closed doors, early tensions between Meghan and the institution were well documented: her disregard for protocol, her clashes with staff, her push for independence. But what was never discussed publicly was the growing unease among royal advisors during her first pregnancy. As early as her second trimester, palace aides reportedly began flagging anomalies to senior figures. These weren't wild accusations or conspiracies, they were practical concerns. One aide, according to a retired royal protection officer, raised questions about medical access. Why was Meghan refusing standard royal obstetric supervision? Why was her medical care kept entirely private, even from palace medical liaisons who had overseen births for Diana, Kate, and other royal mothers. Why were documents being hand-delivered rather than logged through secure channels? The aide was allegedly told to drop it. Another source from inside Clarence House, then the residence of King Charles, claimed that Meghan's pregnancy logistics were guarded like state secrets. When senior royal doctors requested to be briefed on her progress, they were met with vague replies. At one point, an entire medical team was reportedly prepared to mobilize for an upcoming due date, only to be told at the last minute that their presence wouldn't be required. No explanation, no replacement, just a sudden redirection. Behind the scenes, senior royals were said to be deeply uncomfortable. Prince William, in particular, was reportedly vocal about the need for transparency. According to a leaked conversation published in a royal memoir draft later pulled from circulation, William confronted Harry during a family gathering. He questioned inconsistencies in Meghan's appearances. He raised the issue of the Lindo Wing protocol. He even allegedly asked, "Why does she disappear before every hospital-related event?" Harry, in response, defended Meghan fiercely. He accused William of elitism, of mistrusting her because she wasn't one of them. The confrontation, once whispered about, now made brutal sense in hindsight. William wasn't just skeptical, he was suspicious. And the palace? Paralyzed by internal fracture. King Charles, then still Prince of Wales, was caught in the middle. While he had initially welcomed Meghan as a symbol of modernity and reform, he too had reportedly begun to harbor concerns. But with the monarchy already under pressure from Brexit-era unrest, public scrutiny over Prince Andrew's scandals, and growing whispers of irrelevance, he chose caution. Stability over scandal. Reputation over revelation. So, the institution remained quiet. Aides were reassigned. Files were sealed. Questions were buried under layers of public relations spin. Meghan's increasing control over her narrative was not only allowed, it was tolerated. Because the alternative was chaos. An accusation of pregnancy fraud involving a working royal would have threatened the monarchy's global standing, shaken the Commonwealth, and shattered the illusion of royal continuity that held the institution together. Even Queen Elizabeth, known for her composure and deep sense of duty, was reportedly briefed on the matter. According to palace insiders, she was given a heavily sanitized report, stripped of medical detail, light on facts, and worded to frame Meghan's privacy as a cultural and emotional necessity. One advisor told her the situation was being handled by the Duke and Duchess internally. Whether the Queen suspected more is unknown, but her decision was final, no intervention. Let them manage their family affairs in private. This policy of royal detachment created a vacuum, one Meghan expertly filled. Without institutional oversight, she choreographed every appearance, controlled every photo, and manipulated every narrative. The palace, shackled by its own fear of appearing controlling or bigoted, gave her the space she needed to construct the illusion. In doing so, it became her silent accomplice. The public, naturally, had no clue. When Meghan made her pregnancy announcement wearing a flowing white dress beneath a tree in California, it was heralded as poetic. When she told Oprah about suicidal thoughts and racism within the palace, her vulnerability dominated the headlines. Yet in that same interview, she referred to Lilibet as having been born amid healing. The press applauded. The palace remained silent. Now, with the truth unfolding, that silence reads differently. Some see cowardice. Others see strategic withdrawal. But a growing number of voices, inside Parliament, among royal historians, even within the press, see complicity. A public petition emerged demanding an official royal inquiry. Lawmakers from both the House of Lords and the House of Commons raised questions about the use of taxpayer funds in support of what may have been a fraudulent narrative. Royal protection officers had been assigned to the children, royal funding allocated for their care, and diplomatic statements made in their name. If their very identities were now in question, what had the monarchy endorsed? And then there was the line of succession. Both Archie and Lilibet had been granted positions in the royal order of succession. Archie was even styled as a prince after Queen Elizabeth's death, per the traditional rules. If neither child was born of a royal womb, and if only one was biologically related to Harry, what did that mean for the crown's legal standing? Could an illegitimate child, misrepresented under royal birth claims, legally inherit titles or property? Constitutional lawyers were divided. Some argued that as long as Harry recognized them, the succession claims stood. Others insisted that forged documents nullified those claims. The palace, when pressed, refused to comment. But behind closed doors, emergency meetings were held with constitutional experts and senior advisors. The Crown, it seemed, was preparing for every outcome, even the unthinkable. For Harry, the palace's silence has been a final, painful betrayal. Sources close to him say he expected, at the very least, a private apology, a message of support, a nod that the institution had failed him. None came. The only outreach he received was from Princess, and who allegedly told him in a private call, "I knew something wasn't right. I'm sorry we didn't listen sooner." Now, the public is demanding more. More answers. More transparency. More accountability. Because while Meghan orchestrated the deception, it was the palace's silence that let it metastasize into a global fraud. Their fear of scandal protected an illusion that may have done irreparable damage not only to Harry's life, but to the very integrity of the monarchy itself. In the next section, we expose how Meghan's inner circle, once fiercely loyal and sworn to silence, began to fracture, with former allies stepping forward to reveal private conversations, email threads, and the secrets they can no longer keep buried.